For over 6 decades, Clint Eastwood has been more than just an actor or director. He's been a Hollywood institution. A man defined by his steely stare, minimalist words, and unshakable sense of professionalism. Eastwood's reputation on set is legendary. Punctual, efficient, focused, and allergic to nonsense. But behind that cool exterior, there's a side of Clint that only a few have seen, the part that quietly builds grudges, the kind that lasts a lifetime. While he rarely speaks about personal disputes publicly, insiders have whispered for years about the handful of actors who crossed him so badly they were effectively erased from his world. These aren't petty disagreements. They're stories of clashing egos, artistic betrayals, and the quiet wrath of a Hollywood legend. Here are the top 5 actors Clint Eastwood reportedly hated the most, and the stories behind those feuds. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Number 5. Richard Burton. That IT should have been a dream pairing. 2 of Hollywood's most iconic tough guys sharing the screen in the World War II thriller Where Eagles Dare in 1968. On paper, Eastwood and Burton were perfect opposites. Clint, the quiet professional; Burton, the flamboyant, classically trained star with a taste for alcohol and drama. But once filming began, the clash was immediate. Eastwood, a man who preferred a clean, focused shoot, found himself increasingly irritated by Burton's on-set drinking. Burton, often hungover or half-drunk, would forget lines and wander off script. To Clint, who treated film sets like military operations, this was the ultimate sign of disrespect. Crew members recall Eastwood's cold professionalism in contrast to Burton's chaos. He never yelled, never confronted. He just kept his distance. One assistant director remembered Clint saying quietly, "I'm not here to babysit anyone." That summed up his approach. He believed that once you waste people's time, you lose their respect. Though, Where Eagles Dare became a classic, Clint later referred to it as one of the most exhausting shoots of his life. After filming wrapped, he made a silent vow. Never again would he work with someone who didn't share his discipline. Burton, brilliant but self-destructive, had permanently burned that bridge. Number 4. Jean Seberg. T.O. the World. Jean Seberg was the haunting face of French New Wave cinema, a fragile beauty with mystery in her eyes. When she worked with Eastwood on Paint Your Wagon in 1969, many expected sparks to fly. What happened instead was quiet heartbreak and lasting bitterness. Eastwood, then at the height of his fame, had a brief but passionate affair with Seberg during filming. Their chemistry was undeniable on screen and off. But when the shoot ended, Clint simply walked away, coldly, decisively, without looking back. For Seberg, that abandonment cut deep. She was already struggling with personal demons, and the fallout from their relationship added another layer of pain. Rumors spread that she had been humiliated and emotionally shattered by Clint's indifference. In interviews years later, Eastwood avoided mentioning her name, describing Paint Your Wagon only as a learning experience. For Seberg, however, the experience lingered. She reportedly confided to friends that Clint treated relationships the way he directed films, efficiently and without emotion. Their affair became a ghost story in Hollywood, whispered about but never acknowledged. When Seberg's life ended tragically in 1979, it cast a dark shadow over that chapter of Clint's past, a story he has never publicly revisited. Number 3. Tommy Lee Jones. 2 men who built their careers on toughness, silence, and authority. It sounds like a perfect fit, right? Not even close. When Clint cast Tommy Lee Jones in the 2000 film Space Cowboys, he thought he'd found a kindred spirit. But from the first day, it was clear they were 2 alphas in one cage. Clint was directing and starring in the film, running the set with his usual no-nonsense style. Jones, however, had his own ideas, loud ones. Known for being intensely opinionated, he questioned Clint's direction, challenged blocking choices, and made sarcastic remarks between takes. To most directors, that might just be an ego clash, but to Eastwood, it was unforgivable. He valued quiet respect and minimal discussion. In Clint's world, you speak through performance, not argument. One crew member said the tension was palpable, the kind that made everyone else whisper instead of talk. Clint, true to form, never exploded. He simply finished the movie, gave no public criticism, and then quietly vowed never to hire Jones again. The two never worked together after Space Cowboys. Years later, when asked in an interview about the experience, Eastwood gave one of his trademark half-smiles and said, "Some people like to talk about the work. I like to do it." That one sentence said everything. Number 2, Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, this one surprises people. Clint Eastwood and Leonardo DiCaprio collaborated on the 2011 biopic J. Edgar, with Clint directing and Leo starring as FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. The film had prestige written all over it, an Oscar-friendly project with two of Hollywood's most respected names. But what happened behind the scenes wasn't nearly as glamorous. Eastwood's directing style is famously hands-off. He's known for doing minimal takes, sometimes just 1 or 2, and discouraging over analysis. DiCaprio, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. He's a perfectionist, dissecting every line, every emotion, every blink of the eye. Sources from the production described the creative tension between them. DiCaprio would ask for another take to refine his performance, but Clint would wave him off, saying, "We got it." To Leo, that felt rushed. To Clint, it was efficiency. The two never openly fought, but the mutual frustration was obvious. After filming, they went their separate ways, never collaborating again. Eastwood later admitted in an interview that he preferred actors who trusted the first instinct, who didn't chase perfection into the ground. That comment, while subtle, was clearly directed at DiCaprio. The two remain respectful in public, but insiders say Clint found Leo exhausting, a talented actor, yes, but one who made the process too complicated. And finally, number 1, Barbra Streisand. That if you know Clint Eastwood's personality, quiet, reserved, masculine in the old-school sense, you can imagine why Barbra Streisand was his polar opposite. Streisand is brilliant, outspoken, emotional, and famously demanding. The two first met in the late 1970s when Streisand reportedly considered Eastwood for a role opposite her in A Star is Born. The discussions never went far, partly because of scheduling, but mostly because of personality. According to friends, Clint found Streisand's reputation for controlling every detail unbearable. He once said, "Some people direct from the stage when they're supposed to be acting," a not-so-subtle jab that many believed referred to her. Years later, Streisand made public comments about Clint's conservative politics, calling him a relic of a different America. That was it. From that point on, Clint wanted nothing to do with her. He reportedly refused to attend any event she was hosting or featured in, even turning down a gala appearance when he learned she was presenting. To him, it wasn't just personal, it was philosophical. Eastwood built his identity on restraint and authenticity. Streisand, to him, symbolized everything he disliked about Hollywood: overproduction, ego, and excess emotion. Their clash was ideological as much as it was personal, and it remains one of the quietest but most enduring feuds in modern film history. Now, to understand why Clint Eastwood can hold such lasting grudges, you have to understand his worldview. He came up in an era when professionalism wasn't optional, it was sacred. He believes in showing up early, knowing your lines, and doing the job with precision. He's not interested in drama or debate. On set, Clint rarely yells. He doesn't give long lectures or micromanage. Instead, he creates an environment of quiet focus. But that silence can also be intimidating, because when he's disappointed, you feel it. He doesn't need to raise his voice. He just never calls you again. There's an unspoken rule in Hollywood. Crossing Clint Eastwood means exile. He doesn't humiliate anyone, doesn't trash them in interviews. He simply deletes them from his professional universe. Actors like Morgan Freeman, Hilary Swank, and Gene Hackman, all of whom have worked with Clint multiple times, describe him as one of the calmest, most loyal directors they've ever met. But they also say he has an invisible line. Freeman once said, "If Clint gives you trust, don't break it." You won't get another chance. That's the essence of Eastwood's legacy. He's not a man of revenge. He's a man of boundaries. To him, filmmaking is sacred, and the people who share that space must treat it with the same respect. Over the years, those who understood that have thrived in his orbit. Those who didn't, well, they quietly disappeared from it. In the end, this isn't really a story about hate. It's a story about values, about a man who has built his life on discipline, silence, and purpose. Clint Eastwood doesn't waste words, emotions, or time. And if you waste his, you'll never get another shot. Hollywood may have changed, but Eastwood hasn't. He remains the same steely-eyed figure who rode onto the screen decades ago, a man who doesn't just play by his own rules, but lives by them. That's why, for Clint, grudges aren't acts of anger. They're simply the natural order of things in a world where respect still matters.